everyone, I'm Scott Montgomerie, the CEO and co-founder of Scope AR, and today I'd like to talk to you a little bit about AR's influence on the workforce of tomorrow. Is augmented reality going to be a job eliminator or a job creator? So a little bit about Scope AR. We've been around since 2011. We've done a lot of different projects with Fortune 1000 companies and have a lot of companies using our software to create work instructions and use remote assistance within their organizations. So I feel like we've got a pretty good feel for the impacts of culture on the enterprise. And we're primarily focused on field service and manufacturing industries. So just for background, this is a video from 2012. We literally showed this at Augmented World Expo #2. So this was one of the first publicly available demonstrations of using augmented reality in a maintenance context. And we had such a great response from customers saying, oh my God, this is the future, and I can totally see how this solves a lot of our problems. We decided to build a business on it. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions out there in the workforce about how AI and automation and robotics is going to impact their lives. When we first started Scope, I would show my family what I was working on, these proof of concepts, and everybody saw the potential of the technology. This is amazing. This is the future, they would say. But not everyone was so happy. My brother-in-law is a commercial plumber, and his reaction was one of fear. He said, well, this is just the first step towards machines taking over my job. You're going to make me unemployed. Now, being a technologist, this really took me aback. I grew up a Star Trek nerd, where advanced technology has made the world a utopia. People do what they want when they want. There's no currency. Everybody's just taken care of. And that's the future that I want to build. So how could someone think that I was going to make society a worse place, that I was going to make them poor? This didn't make any sense to me, and it bothered me. All I wanted to do was help people do their jobs better and safer. And here was my own family saying that I was going to make society a worse place. Now, my other brother-in-law, he owns a screen door company, and his problem is retaining and training workers. So he immediately saw the value of what augmented reality could bring, but not the other one, not the actual worker. He was worried about his job. And so it turns out that this misconception is not that uncommon. In fact, 75% of millennials are worried that jobs are going to, their jobs are going to be replaced by automation. And the media really isn't helping. It seems that once a month we get a new article about somebody claiming that AI and robotics is going to replace people's jobs. It's almost like mass hysteria. There's even a website dedicated to figuring out if your job is going to be replaced by robots in the future. If you're a welder, you got a 94% probability that you're not going to have a job in the future. You're doomed, this website says. If you're an assembler on a manufacturing line, you've got an 82% probability of being out of a job. The robots are watching. I have no idea where this website gets its data, but it's funny. So is this really true? I mean, the US right now, the economy's on fire. There's 7.6 million jobs open. And there's just a study launched that said between 2018 and 2028, there are going to be 4.6 million US jobs to fill. And about half are going to be left open because companies can't find workers. And manufacturers really can't find workers. In fact, 71% of companies surveyed cited an inability to find skilled workers as a top challenge to their growth and success. So there's seriously disagreement between workers and employers around what's happening. One of our customers, Unilever, has stated that in the next 5 years, they're literally going to be losing 330 years of experience in a single facility. So this is a result of workers that have been trained working in the same factory over an entire career, 35 years. And that knowledge is literally walking out the door. And this is a common trend as well. As the workforce ages in population, the labor force is actually growing slower, and that's having a serious impact on productivity. So what's really going on behind this story of automation taking people's jobs? Well, let's take an example of Facebook. So we've all heard about the fake news and disinformation and violence being distributed on the platform. It's having a major effect on everybody around the world. So last year, Mark Zuckerberg got up in front of Congress and said they're investing heavily in AI. AI is the solution to being able to filter out this malicious content online. But is that really true? The reality is that AI isn't ready and may never be ready. So one particular problem with AI is they really can't make judgment calls requiring cultural context. For example, This is an album cover of the latest Shakira album. Would we consider this porn? In North America, probably not. But now this is the same album cover that was released in the Middle East. They clearly consider the first one porn, or not fit for public consumption. So clearly there's major differences in the cultures of what's acceptable and what's not. Now, how is an AI going to understand that? That's just one example of what's wrong with AI. There's hundreds of other examples of where there's judgment calls that need to be made of what's suitable for a platform. So the result is human moderators. Facebook literally employs 30,000 people to filter through some of these posts. So AI really isn't involved all that much at all. So let's bring it back to an industrial context. We're a long way off from AI being able to fix and diagnose and operate things. I mean, everybody in this room knows that object recognition is hard. Nobody's doing it particularly well in a generalized context. So are robots and AIs really going to be able to walk into a room and recognize a piece of equipment and then diagnose what's wrong with it immediately without telemetry like IoT? Are you really going to be able to walk into a room and understand that that thunk, thunk, thunk sound is indicative of some certain problem, like a lot of experts can do? We're a really long way away from that. And in fact, Elon Musk blamed over-reliance on automation for missing his production targets on the Model 3 line last year. The solution? They literally ripped up all the robots and replaced it with people. So clearly there's a lot of workforce misconceptions out there. A lot of people are worried that robots and automation are going to completely replace the need for humans in manufacturing. Older workers are worried that they're going to be left behind because they can't adapt to new technologies as quickly as they need to. They're also worried that their knowledge is obsolete. I think all three of these points are patently false. We really believe in augmentation versus automation. We firmly believe that augmented reality is going to allow workers to be more productive, have higher job satisfaction, and interact with AIs and work alongside those robots. Augmented reality is literally the technology that's going to keep humanity in the loop and involved in the process and improve productivity overall so that we're all a lot better off. So let's go back to why we think augmented reality is so important to the future of productivity. So we all know downtime and errors cost companies trillions of dollars each year. In fact, 23% of unplanned downtime in manufacturing is caused by human error. And that downtime is expensive, up to $22,000 per minute in downtime in a single factory. It's no wonder that humans are worried that robots are going to replace their jobs. They keep screwing up. What's wrong with all you humans out there? So how can AR fix it? Well, the real problem is that the volume of human knowledge has exceeded individuals' ability to retain it. Equipment is constantly more complex. And expertise is difficult to master. They say that it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert in any particular task. No worker can possibly invest 10,000 hours to become an expert on every piece of machinery that he's exposed to over the course of his career. So what that means is you've got very few experts, people that have worked their careers in a certain piece of equipment and really know what they're doing. And you've got a lot of untrained technicians out in the field. Not due to their own fault, they just haven't had the time to really train and retain stuff on the complex equipment, and they keep getting shifted between equipment and just haven't had that time. So what that means is that knowledge transfer between those few experts that really understand what they're doing and those many technicians that don't really have a clue is incredibly important. And this problem is being compounded by the fact there's an aging workforce. We just talked about how knowledge is literally walking out the door. And this is all compounded by the fact that existing communications are extremely ineffective. Written instructions can be problematic. Words are ambiguous. Diagrams are inaccurate abstractions. If anybody's ever made a mistake putting together IKEA furniture, you probably know what I'm talking about. You're doing this mental mapping from these poorly drawn stick diagrams to the real world, and we humans, we make errors. You know, one piece of wood looks the same as a cube on a page as it does in a different size. We put things on in the wrong orientation. So we can try real-time communication, but let's take another example. Let's say you're trying to fix your car, do something simple like replacing a headlight. You go into the glove compartment, and you pull out the manual, and you try to read these instructions, and you try to go to your car, and I just can't follow these instructions, I don't know what I'm doing. So you might try to call a mechanic to get help. But let's be honest, when was the last time you ever called a mechanic to get help? You're just going to take it in to get him to do it for you. And the reason is because that real-time communication channel is just not effective. A phone call is going to be very frustrating. Hey, yeah, it's that bolt right there. No, the one to the left. No, the other left. No, not that. Don't touch that one. No, stop it. OK, this is not going to work. So we believe that augmented reality is the perfect medium to enhance communication and understanding. So from a business perspective, there's a lot of return on investment studies that have been cited out there. And I'm not going to dwell on them, but just quickly, KSB Steel has reported that there's a 40% boost in productivity and a 50% cut in downtime. Boeing's reporting 35% boost in productivity, and their new workers are able to complete new tasks 90% more effectively. Lockheed Martin's consistently reporting 42% to 46% improvement in productivity across a wide variety of use cases. Unilever's reporting 50% cuts in downtime, and Prince Castle is reporting up to 100% first-time fix rates. So it's extremely clear that augmented reality is going to have a very positive benefit to the bottom line of these organizations. But this presentation is all about the worker. What are we seeing in the workforce that's benefiting the worker? So we're seeing that older workers are staying in their jobs longer. In fact, with one of our customers, there was an employee that was supposed to retire last year. He literally delayed his retirement by 5 years because he was so excited about this new technology and felt like he could really have an impact by bringing it into the organization and leave a legacy during the transition of this new technology. That's really impressive. We're hearing that workers are becoming more re-engaged in their jobs. Gone are the days where millennials want workers with repetitive, monotonous tasks, painting the same car part over and over again. This is a generation that grew up on the internet with constant stimulation, checking Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. They don't want these repetitive, monotonous tasks. So with augmented reality, we can start re-engaging these younger workers and attracting those millennials into the workforce, into these traditionally boring jobs. We're hearing about increased job satisfaction. Just yesterday, Shelley Peterson from Lockheed Martin spoke about how they were able to take one task that was usually slated to take 6 weeks, and they brought it down to 2 weeks, while only using 50% of the labor. Now, for those that are paying attention around the math, that doesn't really work out. How did we get from 3 weeks to 2 weeks? Well, these particular workers actually worked overtime over the Thanksgiving long weekend, unpaid, because they were so excited about the technology and just wanted to get the job done and bring that time down. That's amazing for that industry to have unpaid overtime. We've heard a lot of studies around increased safety and efficiency, and it makes sense. If you're able to see the instructions and understand your job better, you're going to make less mistakes and thus do jobs safer. We've heard a lot about new roles for older workers. A lot of people retire because they're not willing or able to crawl around on their hands and knees and go do plumbing jobs and the such. And so they retire, they leave the workforce. But they've literally got 35 years, potentially, of knowledge they've gained, and that knowledge is extremely useful to the workforce. So with remote assistance type applications or advisory roles, we can move them into a cushy call center type position where they can advise younger workers that are more than willing to go crawl around on their hands and knees. And finally, we can help retrain workers. We've heard a lot about manufacturers leaving the United States, GM closing plants, coal miners being out of work. What if we can help, with augmented reality, we can help retrain these workers? And then the discrete manufacturing trend just really amplifies these problems. With discrete manufacturing, you're constantly changing what workers need to know and having to retrain them. If we can train them faster through micro-interactions, we can make them much more productive and happy. So let's talk about humans and what they're good at for a moment. Humans are really good at tacit knowledge. They're really good at making decisions based on emotions and personal experience, like gut feel and intuition. Humans were literally built to interact with the real world, with our hands and our eyes. We evolved that way. We're really good at interacting with 3D. We're not so good at interacting with 2D. And we have something that robots will never have, empathy. Working with teams, problem solving, understanding why something's not working. So where AR can help is AR bridges the data and the real world. We all know that computers can process incredibly large amounts of data incredibly quickly. And with the cloud, there's essentially an infinite amount of memory. And that memory is much more reliable than humans. So AR can actually enable something we call microlearning. If you think about traditional learning techniques, it's all about repetition. Workers are forced to watch training videos and go through repetitive tasks so that we hammer that knowledge into their head so that when they need that knowledge, it's there. If you only see something once, you're very unlikely to retain that for the long term. So this is not incredibly cost effective. We're literally spending weeks, months, even years training people when that knowledge might only be used for a fraction of that time in the field. So with microlearning, that can be much more cost-effective. If we can literally teach you what you're doing, give you a quick refresher before you do your job, or while you're doing your job, instruct you what you're supposed to do, that's going to be much more cost-effective than spending weeks or years doing repetition. And it's much more engaging. People are used to micro-interactions. There's a stat out there that says that we check our phones, email, Facebook, Twitter 150 times per day. What if doing your job was just a micro-interaction? What if pulling up your phone or putting on a pair of smart glasses for a 10-minute task was as easy as checking Twitter and engaging? It helped you do your job better, make you feel good about what you're doing. And then finally, microlearning can improve retention. It's extremely unlikely that somebody could sit down and read Grey's Anatomy, cover to cover, and all of a sudden become a medical expert. But if you just read a couple pages about the specific task that you were supposed to do, your retention is going to be much better. So again, if we can enable microlearning, and we can teach you what you're supposed to be doing right before you're doing it or as you're doing it, we can manage your cognitive load and improve your attention dramatically. So how do we at Scope AR solve these problems? So we've got a platform called WorkLink. And we like to think that we're able to make anyone an instant expert. And we're cross-platform across glasses, phones, tablets, so that we can enable this type of interaction with as many people in the workforce as possible. So the first way we do this is through work instructions. So with work instructions, we can give you just-in-time training, what I just spoke about in terms of micro-learning, micro-transactions. We can give you the knowledge you need, the instructions at the time of need, so you know exactly what you're doing. Additionally, we can improve safety, because if you're being given instructions, you're much less likely to make a mistake. And if you're doing your job correctly every single time, not making any mistakes, and doing it well and much more efficiently previously, we can help you improve your job satisfaction. So the second way we can help workers is through remote assistance. So allowing a worker to call an expert who has been trained and really has knowledge about how to solve a particular problem is really efficient. And as I spoke about, we can take workers that have a tremendous amount of knowledge and put them in call centers or technical advisory committees. So we're allowing them to extend their careers and extend their usefulness and use that knowledge. It's a win-win-win. The organization wins, the employee wins, and then the frontline technician can do his job much more efficiently because he's being guided by someone who knows what they're doing remotely. And finally, a feature we just launched this week is called session recording. So while we're working together between these frontline technicians and these few people with decades of knowledge, we're doing a knowledge transfer, and we can record that. So we're recording this in a novel way through audio, video, and through 3D annotations in 3 different channels. And so now we can reuse that for training purposes or for continuous process improvements or to give this to future employees that we haven't even hired yet. We can also bring this back and create work instructions in the future around this. So finally, we've got a product called WorkLink Create, which is an easy-to-use authoring platform that makes it very easy for workers to create instructions. So it's fully drag and drop. There's no coding required. And it allows manufacturing engineers or documentation specialists to be able to create these procedures and then give them out to the frontline workers so that we can help them do just-in-time training. So it's a really simple-to-use interface. And we think we can actually retrain workers that are used to working in factories or maybe out of jobs, and we can reuse these technicians to start building content with equipment they're familiar with. So again, bringing workers that are potentially out of work and giving them new meaning in their workforce. That's powerful. So, just to recap, with work instructions, we can enable just-in-time training, and thus we can improve safety, improve job satisfaction. With remote assistance, we can enable new roles for older workers. And this can enable better knowledge transfer for younger workers. They can be trained by somebody who knows what they're doing and coached. With session recording, we're capturing those interactions between those people with knowledge, decades of experience, transmitting that knowledge to those new workers and solving problems. And then we can reuse that knowledge to improve future interactions. And with WorkLink Create, we can retrain workers to be visual coders, allowing those easy drag and drop interactions so we can create content quickly and efficiently. So just wrapping this up about those workforce misconceptions, we'd like to talk about augmentation, not automation. AR is the way that humans will stay in the loop alongside the coming automation. They're going to work together. Older workers are absolutely integral to manufacturing productivity. Their knowledge is invaluable. And using AR, we can attract a new generation of skill sets and people into traditionally unsexing jobs. We're literally enabling millennials to come into these unfilled roles. Thanks very much. Please come see us at our booth, 213. Just look up. You can't miss our logo. Thanks very much. Oh, I guess I'm doing a Q&A session. Okay. Let's see here. You seem to be defining workforce as manufacturing. How do you account from the fear in retail and public transportation workers who may lose their jobs from AI? I mean, okay, so throughout the history of the last 200 years, there have been workers that have had to be retrained. I do think there's going to be a shift of where workers are now and where they're going to be in the future. So definitely, self-driving cars is going to cause a retraining. But this is where I think we can really help. We can enable those workers that understand what they're doing in the field and enable them to reuse that knowledge in a certain way. Now, it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be casualties along the way. But I think, using AR, we can really enable those new interactions. Should universities and high schools start implementing courses in augmented reality for their future workforce? Yeah, absolutely. I absolutely believe that people that understand this new technology and are starting to be trained are going to have a leg up over other people that aren't. If you have a skill set, I mean, let's say that you were a worker back when PowerPoint came out. If you took a course in learning how PowerPoint working or learning how coding worked back in the 90s, you definitely had a leg up over people who didn't. So yeah, I think education in new technologies is a very, very good idea. If tasks can be completed more efficiently, will this reduce the number of people on the floor of a factory? Yeah, possibly. But again, like I said, we've heard about automation for the last 200 years. I mean, there's the Luddites, for example. They used to be extremely sought-after workers, and automation, the loom, came in and put them out of a job. And they started destroying this automation in the factories. Society eventually got over it. It's the same old thing. So yeah, there's a few casualties, but overall, I think humanity is going to be much, much better for it. And we just need to get these people to be retrained in different jobs, and augmented reality can enable that. What conversations are taking place about remunerating exiting workers for participating in this knowledge transfer? That's a great question. I don't have any knowledge on this, to be quite honest with you. So, any other questions? All right, great. Thanks very much.